I need to scan. Yeah. I sent the client something yesterday, it didn't go through right, so I need to scan.
atrocity and war would end. Father, we just praise you and give you glory when that happens. Father, we thank you today that we're here to hear these bills, to do the work for you. Help us always to be reminded that what we do affects someone, and help us to do it with a heart that's open to your wisdom. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Well, again, welcome to a good rainy morning. And so those of us that farm, we need the rain. HB 1376, Representative Moore, is she here? Welcome back to the Ag Committee. I apologize for having to cut things short a little last time. And so you've got 2 strikes against you this morning. This is a dog bill. Is this a dog bill?
This is the best dog bill that will come before this entire committee. It's the best one.
Okay. And you did not like the Freedom to Farm bill last week. Is that right? What can I do to convince you to
Look, we talked about this,
support
Chairman.
that bill?
That bill was going to pass anyway. It asked you not to live.
That was the best ag bill ever.
Well, I trust that this committee did their due diligence on that, and I was not here for that, so we'll blame it on that.
Okay, lots of excuses, but anyway, we'll get down to business. Committee wants to come back, and appreciate you presenting last meeting, and let's talk about HB 1376 a little more.
Great. Well, thank you. And good morning, Ag Committee. Good morning, everybody here in the room. Thank you for having me back. Since we did have a chance last time to talk about, the substance of the bill, I'll just give a really brief summary for the record, for the archives. This is a bill that would fix a very simple issue that is affecting a business in my district. But this is a solution to a problem that could exist all over the state. So you may have a business in your restaurant in your district that would benefit from this bill as well. Right now, it is legal under Georgia law to have a restaurant that allows dogs onto an outdoor patio. But what is currently illegal is for you to feed your canine friend food on that restaurant patio. And there is a restaurant in my district called Lazy Dog. If you recall, last time I passed out copies of their dog menu. If anybody needs another copy of that, I can make sure that you get one. And if there are any extra copies left over, anybody here in the audience can come up and grab one as well. And you'll see that, we're not talking about traditional dog food. We're talking about human food that is dog safe. And that's all they're asking is the ability to serve their special pup menu to the dogs that customers choose to bring onto their outdoor patio. To reiterate a point I made last week, dogs are not allowed in the indoor dining room. All right, that part is not changing at all. You can see this is a very short and simple bill. And Part A says that if a restaurant chooses to offer a dog menu, that they will in fact be allowed to. But Part B says that the Department of Public Health shall establish what the rules and regulations are to ensure that under, if dogs are allowed to eat on the patio, that the restaurant will have to follow the Department of Public Health's rules and regs. And then actually, Chairman, it was perfectly fine that we had to take a break last time when we ran out of time, because it allowed me to talk to some community partners about what we can do to maybe improve the bill. So we made 2 small improvements to it. Number one is we made it clear that any restaurant that chooses to allow a dog menu, that they would have to have appropriate insurance to cover any issues surrounding the feeding of dogs. The second small change that we made, you can see we added a little Part C that confirms that the Department of Public Health shall have sole authority to implement the provisions of this code. This was after a conversation that I had with the Department of Agriculture. It was not entirely clear whether they would have dual jurisdiction over this subject matter. And when we showed them that, this is not traditional packaged dog food that otherwise falls under the Department of Ag, this is human grade dog food. That we kind of thought that it would be counterproductive for the Department of Ag to have dual jurisdiction with the Department of Public Health. So that's why we added Section C. And that's it. I know that we've got a couple people that want to speak to the bill, but I'll pause there and see if the committee has any questions.
Well, thank you, Representative. I'd like to ask if anybody's in the audience like to speak to this bill above, or is it on the list? If you Okay, why don't you come to the podium, Mike, and you just hold on, Representative, we'll get back with you with some committee questions. Go ahead.
All mine.
Tell the committee who you are.
Sure. My name is Mike Oglesby, and I'm the Regional Operations Director here in Atlanta for Lazy Dog Restaurant and Bar.
Thank you.
Good to go?
Go ahead.
Cool. Just along with the introduction, just want to say thank you very much for hearing me speak. I'm a proud Georgia resident. I live in Johns Creek. So far, I've just been very, very excited to see that our brand of hospitality lines up with that of the state of Georgia. And for anybody that's unfamiliar, if we haven't made it to your neck of the woods quite yet, Lazy Dog Restaurant and Bar, we serve handcrafted American food and drink with an emphasis on just the quality and freshness of our ingredients. And we draw a lot of inspiration from the spirit of the Rocky Mountains, where our founder and his friends and family grew up and spent a lot of time. So our main objective is just to be a place where anybody can go for any occasion, and then build on the needs of the communities that we become a part of as we see them. So over the past 3.5 years now, we've opened 2 locations. We've employed 400 people, and we'd love to expand that number. While we haven't been able to serve dogs quite yet in the state of Georgia, I have seen firsthand the benefit that provides. When we do have the ability to serve dogs in our establishments, we're able to grow the top line through guest traffic and guest frequency, which will increase the sales, and that allows us to provide more jobs for our communities. So big return on investment there. And as I said before, just the hospitality and business-centric nature of the state of Georgia. All we're looking to do moving forward here is just expand on our operation and provide the entirety of our service model in a safe manner to our Georgia residents. So that's all I really had for you. I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for hearing me speak. And I just look forward to answering any questions that you might have about what we do, how safe we do it, and any practices that we might have surrounding serving dogs.
Well, thank you. Any questions from the committee? I see a couple here. Representative Lorica.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I hope that I expressed this in the other meeting where you presented, but I don't know why this is complicated. If I choose to go and eat at a restaurant where I know full well that there will be dogs dining either at the table or under the table with their owners, that's my choice. I like it. I think if people want this option in this community or any other community in Georgia, now I'm a little bit nervous about the Department of Public Health having, sole authority, because they can complicate this thing for you quick.
They can. We have a very good relationship with them.
Yeah.
And we've done this quite a few times in many other states. And I think that we know how to execute very well and make them feel comfortable and safe. And as Beth said, hopefully help other businesses do the same thing.
If it's for human consumption and dog friendly, why would we need different utensils? I mean, if I'm not careful, my kids feed our dog right off of their fork, and that's fine. But listen, I appreciate you bringing the bill.
Thank you very much, sir.
Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Chairman. While I'm getting educated here on constipation of dogs and vomiting and teeth fungus and everything else, let me ask you a couple questions. We know that a dog, of course, this is out on a patio type deck. It's not in a fine restaurant where you're sitting there and it's going to be harder to clean up. Children have pretty much a lot of the same problems. Is that correct?
Very much so.
That means children can eat certain things and they can make a mess about like an animal can, a dog. What proper process would you say you're using when something like this does happen?
I would say, just to your first point, probably much more frequently with children than dogs.
Yes, sir.
And we have an excess of bottom. So typically most places you go, you have to have bodily fluid cleanup kits.
Right.
In our establishments, we carry more of those because we have dogs and a lot of children. So we have more of them on site, and then we have the proper sanitation products. So we glove up. Obviously, we don't touch anything directly. We clear the area. We clean it 100% and sanitize it with those bodily fluid cleanup kits. Once we remove everything, we'll mop it down, depending on what surface it's on. We'll mop it down, clean it completely, and then we'll reseat the area, refurnish the area, and bring everybody back in. But those are all 100% approved by our vendors and the health department, and they're fully aware that those work for both human and dog fluids.
And let me ask you another follow-up. How many in the existing restaurants would you say dog bites have you had, or attacks with other dogs?
I've been
over
with the
food?
brand for coming up on 11 years now, and I haven't seen one incident.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
No problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's change courses. I'd like to ask my friend Karen Bremer from Georgia Restaurant Association to please come to the podium. Thank you for those comments, and this will hopefully be a little bit more appetizing than this last line of thought.
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Dickey and committee members. For those of y'all that, and ladies and gentlemen, for those of y'all that don't know me, I'm Karen Bremer. I'm President and CEO of the Georgia Restaurant Association. I am celebrating my 47th year in the restaurant industry. Definitely started when I was very young. Preface that I was a restaurateur for 35 years, starting as an hourly employee, becoming president of the Peasant Restaurants here in Atlanta. And then I was the owner of Daly's and City Grill, 2 fine dining establishments. Unfortunately, the recession caused me early retirement. And I chose at that time to be a voice for the industry, to help educate people on what's important about our industry, the economic impact that we have, and to explain the rules behind things. And I appreciate Representative Moore for working with us on this. It was important to me that we make sure that restaurateurs out there know how they need to operate their restaurant in a safe manner for public safety, as well as safety for themselves. And so the insurance clause was very important to me. As I've said to some of y'all before, part of my job is to protect restaurants from themselves. Not every restaurateur is going to take, y'all, some of y'all have seen me carry that in here, the 750 pages of the FDA food code that the U.S. Department of Public Health adopted in 1934, so there would be rules so people would stop killing each other with botulism and trichinosis and all these other things, and would set a standard in our country for food safety. That is the book that the department, that people that are in agriculture use, people in food processing and manufacturing, distillers, craft brewers, and then about half of the book is how we operate restaurants safely in the state of Georgia. And we are supportive of new concepts coming into the state. We always really ask restaurateurs to work with us. We can help explain and navigate how you can develop a concept here in the state and still do it within the frameworks of the Georgia Department of Public Health. So I was very happy to work with everybody on that. I'm glad we were able to put together something to assist, because I know there are many restaurants that are already doing this practice. And so my next hurdle is educating the industry on what these new rules are. And as a point of personal note, Chairman Dickey, I would respectfully request after the biennial at maybe one of your first committee meetings to have 20 or 30 minutes so I can explain the process of why we have a food code, how it works, how rules are adopted, and what the process is. When I stepped into my role 11 years ago, I realized that we didn't have a lot of rules to support a lot of new innovative concepts. We did not have in our code food trucks. We did not have in our code base camp kitchens or commissary kitchens. I sat with the Department of Public Health and said, these are new concepts that are coming into our state. At that point, the only way you could have a food truck was to get a special variance. So we worked together. I canvassed 1,200 individuals around the state, from food safety people to attorneys, to food truck people, to caterers. And we all worked together to adopt the rules so these businesses could operate properly in our state under rules. And as a former restaurateur, I know I wanted to know the correct way to run my business so that I was protecting public safety and also preventing liability. for my business, which would hurt my employees. And so, again, thank you. We're very happy that that's something that y'all were able to work with DPH and with us on it. So definitely supportive of the legislation. Any questions?
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate those comments very much. I really appreciate the great job you and your organization do. Our restaurant industry is very vital and thriving. Thank goodness coming through the COVID. I know it was a lot of challenges for all our restaurants. And so thank you for your leadership and service to that organization. You do have one question, for Leader Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may not necessarily be for you, but just for, for my information, in terms of the dog food that will be consumed at these establishments, will that then be regulated by the Department of Public Health, or will it still be regulated under the Department of Agriculture? Or will there be any regulations on the pet food?
It is my understanding, and if somebody knows differently, that the Department of Public Health is going to work on what those rules are. There's many examples of certain dogs on patio policies that certain states have adopted, and I'm sure they're going to use scientific basis and work with. If the Department of Agriculture, I think, was going to have a say in this, they would have already commented on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Chairman, if you don't mind, I can also address your question. And I know a couple people have been coming in and out, but we added Part C to ensure that the Department of Public Health has sole regulatory authority here to alleviate the Department of Ag from having dual jurisdiction, which from talking to them, they didn't want to have dual. So we added that in to make sure that this is done by the Department of Public Health.
Great. And I would just like to say in closing, I want to thank everybody in this room for supporting my industry for the past 2 years, buying gift cards, getting carry out. I think that our industry has been one of the industries hardest hit, but we've also been the industry that has helped establish normalcy in our communities and getting people, we were the first to get people back to work, and appreciate every bit of support that every person in this room has had in supporting the restaurant industry during the past 2 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Is anybody from Department of Public Health here want to speak to this bill though? Representative, I think you've had conversations with them. Here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Hi,
Thank
thank you. Hi, Chairman Dickey, members of the committee. Megan Andrews, I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Policy at DPH. I have our food safety expert here if there's questions. I know there was discussion about the historical background on this restaurant, the variance application and denial. So we're here to provide information to y'all and educate you in your decision-making process. And y'all are certainly the policymakers and here to weigh all of those factors in your decision-making. So we're here if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see one question, Representative Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to that point and to the previous question that I asked, is the department at a place to regulate pet food in this situation?
We certainly haven't in the past. Do you want to jump in? Introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Galen Baxter again. The Department of Public Health does not have any jurisdictional authority over any pet food regulations at all. So that would not be the focus of any of the regulatory aspect in the rulemaking process for this.
So you have the sole responsibility to implement provisions of this code, but you will not regulate the food that is actually fed to pets at these establishments. Is that right?
That's correct. It would just be the situation around feeding the pet on the patio.
So back to my original question, will the Department of Ag, and Bo Warren maybe here can speak to it, who will actually regulate what is being fed to the pets?
I think I can address that question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the menu that I provided to you, granted, this is one example of it. You can
Right.
see it's not pet food. It's hamburger, it's vegetables, it's rice. This is human grade food. If there is any kind of prepackaged dog food, like what you might buy at the grocery store, kibbles and bits type of stuff, that is already regulated by the Department of Ag. And so what this would do is allow the Department of Public Health to regulate the service part, making sure that, that public health is protected in the serving of the food. But when it's the human grade food, like what you see on that menu, that falls squarely within the Department of Public Health, because it's just human food that's safe for dogs. So that's where the distinction is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Hogan. I'm Chairman Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this bill have anything to do with service dogs?
It does not.
Thank you.
Representative Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so to clarify, my understanding is then the food that's being fed to the dogs is not otherwise being regulated by a state agency. It's just the manner of presentation and preparation and other conditions with a goal toward ensuring the safety of humans. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we got a couple of more speakers want to speak to this bill. Nathan Humphrey, do you want to speak to this bill? Just
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. And first of all, I'd like to say we were very proud to be supportive of your Freedom to Farm bill. And thank you, committee members and legislature, for passing that bill. First of all, I'd just like to say I love legislation like this. Many small businesses, as you know, really struggled during the pandemic. And what we saw is the businesses that were the most impacted by the COVID were also the most innovative and creative in finding new ways to be flexible, to be profitable, and keep their business alive. And they were able to survive because of it. And anytime that they come forward with something that there may be roadblocks unintentionally, bureaucratically, or red tape, and that we can fix to let them thrive and find new ways to be innovative is great for Georgians all around. So I appreciate you guys looking at this and your favorable consideration, and similar to the Restaurant Association, we're very much in support of.
thank you. We have one more person wants to speak to the bill. You want to speak to the bill? No. Okay. Oh, great. Well, we're getting close here, committee. Representative Mitchell, Zoom, if you've got a question for
Yes, thank you. I actually just had a comment. One of the comments stated was that human food is safe for dogs, and that's actually not universally true. So I would hope that I'm assuming the business itself has actually vetted their menu through a veterinarian or a veterinary nutritionist who could make sure that foods that are not safe for dogs, which include some common foods like, say, grapes, are not ever going to be part of that menu.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question, then we're gonna try to get through this. Representative Mathis.
I just have one question. I'm a dog lover. So we've sat here and we've talked about the safety of the food. We've talked about the safety of the folks at the restaurant. We haven't talked about the safety of the dog. Let's say we have some pretty little lap dogs in there eating, and somebody brings a vicious dog in there, like a, I don't know, a Rottweiler or a Doberman or a Pit Bull. And when they put that food out, now I've seen dogs, I've had them. Dogs go after dogs, and they're gonna get the food. So I'm somewhat concerned, what are you gonna do if we have a massive attack on some dogs? So that should be considered. And then you get people going in to try to break that up, and then people get hurt. That's a serious thought. So, I'm concerned about all the other things that each one of you said, but I'm concerned about the little dog too. So we better think about that, because you've seen what dogs do. They're dogs, and they like to eat, and they will eat whatever. So that's just a thought.
Thank you. I seeing no more questions. Oh, would you?
I can address that if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, all the dogs that we have on our patio, first off, it could happen, and I appreciate your concern. All of the dogs that we have on our patio are required to be leashed. The tables are spaced in such a way that dogs are never in contact with one another, should the owners not allow them to be. Dogs are not allowed on laps, and that becomes a little protective, and it's also a health issue. And when we feed the dogs, we actually provide the food to the owner, and the owner feeds the dog. So that removes our employee from the equation. So this is kind of thought out, and it's stationed in a manner that these dogs will not come in contact should the owners not prefer that to be so. We also monitor the dogs. If anybody exhibits yappy or aggressive or just overly energized behavior, we actually do ask the owners to remove the dogs for the safety of our guests and the other dogs.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we've heard enough information on this, and if the committee is would like to move this bill, I would entertain a motion if it's the will of committee. Got a motion? Got a second? Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of 1376, say aye. Opposed? One opposed? Bill passes.
All right. Thank you. committee.
Congratulations,
Appreciate it.
Representative.
Thank you.
Okay. I do not see Representative Gullett here. Is he here? In your packet, there is a bill. His bill is added HB 1496. So I hope, I don't think he's going to present that bill today. I think he's actually working on a sub. So y'all take that and look at it, and we'll have Representative Gullett come back here at a later date with 1496. So that leaves us HB 1176, the right to repair. Chairman Perkle, I know we had a lot of testimony at our last meeting, and it's created a lot of conversation around my office, and
Mine as well.
yours as well, and I'm sure many of our committee members. So I thought it was appropriate to come back and have a little bit more conversation about right to repair. So I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm working off of LC 510148S. This is a different sub than what we looked at last time. I actually took the feedback that we had received, and I modified the bill, as we do as we move bills forward and want to perfect the bills for the process that we have. And so what I'd like to do is just run through the changes that we made. I think we had substantial discussion regarding the bill. And so the changes made, I would like to just run through quickly. Beginning on line 35, fair and reasonable terms was modified. We had several people that questioned that fair and reasonable standard for parts and software and tools to repair equipment, that the dealer might have to provide those at a net zero, which is absolutely not what my intention was. So I added language. If you'll see on line 37 for manufacturer, it includes costs plus distribution and delivery, including capital costs, distribution, and a reasonable profit. So there's nothing in there that will be wholesale. Secondly, for line 42, regarding an authorized repair provider that provides a cost, it includes there again, cost of delivery, cost of reasonable profit. So it includes those items that we normally allocate in a cost accounting basis for profitability. On line 54, medical device manufacturer was defined and later carved out. If we'll turn a couple of pages over to, on mine, it's page 6. And part D is added. Nothing in this article will require an original manufacturer or authorized repair provider, blah, 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 to modify said equipment in such a way as to fall out of compliance with safety, environmental, or other regulatory standards, which otherwise will be restricted or inaccessible to the owner. We heard a lot of testimony about how there was some concern that this could allow a skirting of environmental regulations, particularly on engines. And so that was not my intention at all. I didn't think that the bill was flawed in that direction before, but I wanted to, in an abundance of caution, make sure I spelled it out, that nothing here will allow that if it violates that. Similarly, on number E, beginning at line 24, nothing in this article shall require blah, blah, blah. If such authorization shall require, better read this part, shall require an original equipment manufacturer, authorized repair provider provide necessary service material to an owner or independent service provider who is not licensed, certified, or otherwise authorized to perform the modification repair if such authorization is required by a state or federal regulatory body. So on line 134, there is a carve out for medical device manufacturer. And those are the changes to the bill. There were several things that were, think of a kind way to say it. There were several things in the last hearing that I disagree with, that I think were not entirely factual. We heard that this is a harmful solution in search of a problem. Now that is a cool little phrase. It's pithy, it's a catchphrase, but it's not an accurate representation of repair issues. When a manufacturer creates a system where a product can only be repaired by its own service team, you've stifled competition. So I'd love to stand up here with a whiteboard and draw a supply and demand graph and show that when you limit the number of people that can work on your things, that it actually is a shift. It actually shifts the supply curve and causes an increase in price and a lessening of economic value. The second most possibly important thing that was pen to paper in 1776. We all know the first one. The second one is Adam Smith, the father of economics, wrote this. He's a Scottish guy that wrote this this pamphlet, this book that's called The Wealth of Nations, which is where we get our economic theory from. And here's what he said in 1776. The purely economic case against monopoly is that it reduces aggregate economic welfare. When the monopolist raises prices above the competitive level in order to reap monopoly profits, customers buy less of the product, less is produced, and society as a whole is worse off. Now, these manufacturers are not a pure monopoly. So I want to say that because they're all sitting in their head saying, well, I'm not, and that's true. They're not, but they do have monopoly powers in that they can limit who can work on their things. So if they set an artificially high price on repairs due to their ability to exclude other repair technicians, they have a monopolistic tendency. In my conversations with dozens of farmers, heavy equipment manufacturers, operators, consumers, they repeatedly told me of real life stories. It's not an academic exercise, although I did quote Adam Smith. It's not a purely academic exercise. This repair problem has real world impacts for millions of consumers. And so there is a problem, there is an issue. I can graph it if you allow me on a supply demand graph to show you where we have problems with consumers and their economic benefit. The second thing was, it was mentioned the only things that are not available are portions of embedded code that are necessary to meet safety and emissions standards. Well, I think I addressed that when I talked about the bill regarding the additions that I made for the repair, and nothing in this bill shall require modification where it falls out of compliance with environmental, safety, or other regulatory standards. So I think we addressed that pretty solidly. Another comment was manufacturers are concerned with liability. Well, there's nothing in this bill that changes liability laws. And further, I actually added language that's a hold harmless. So, I mean, if I drive my truck, if I'm going down the road and, I had a flat tire and I'm not an authorized mechanic on my truck and I put it on, I don't put the lugs on right. and I go down the road and the doggone thing falls off and, crashes into the wall. It's not General Motors or Ford's fault. It's my fault. And there's nothing in this bill that adds any additional liabilities for manufacturers or dealers. Proprietary information was another concern that was spoke about a lot in our last hearing, that source codes would be compromised. This bill specifically excludes trade secrets. No source code is needed for repair. Every single day, technicians make authorized repair technicians at the dealership, at the authorized people, they make every day they will make repairs and they don't access source code. I included in your packet, I think it should be handed out. This is not my language. Trade secrets. I forgot to put the number at the top. It's 10-1-761 in Georgia code. And so I'd like to read what that is. Trade secret means information without regard to form, including but not limited to technical or non-technical data, a formula, a pattern, a compilation, a program, a device, a method, a technique, etc. Which A, derives economic value, actual or potential, from not being generally known to and not being readily ascertainable by proper means by other persons who can obtain economic value from its disclosure. Or secondly, is the subject of efforts that are reasonable and under the circumstances to maintain its secrecy. So trade secrets encompasses the source code that people are concerned about. So trade secrets are specifically excluded in my bill. And I apologize beforehand that I did not give you the definition of trade secrets, but there it is. I addressed the problem about selling parts at wholesale because I did add the language. I think that is absolutely addressed. One of the speakers said this is going to kill jobs. That is absolutely not true. It will not kill jobs. It will actually increase the number of people that will. That's what happens when you increase competition. That's what Milton Friedman would say, the neoclassical economist. When you introduced competition into the marketplace, you will have more providers. And that's one of the things that this bill absolutely does. I could draw this thing off, but I don't have a whiteboard, and I would absolutely. But if you remember in microeconomics, the shift of the supply curve, you'll get the gist of it. It was said in the last committee that almost everything needed is already available to owners. That is not true. I spoke to a certified independent mechanic that they called several people, several dealerships in several states to gain access to the tools necessary to work on my stuff, and no one would sell it to him. In fact, while we were in this hearing, I had a friend that called someone that was here at their manufacturer dealer and could not purchase the software and tools that are available. And in theory, if they're available, and in practice, they're not available. So that's another thing that I would just like to put out there. We heard we support the right to repair but not modify. Language in this bill specifically excludes any changes what modifies EPA emission standards. It specifically says that in this bill. However, I got to tell you, modification is not a bad deal. I mean, modification is not bad. This is things. For those of you that are peanut farmers, that's on this board, we actually have when we dig our peanuts, there's an inverter. Some people just call it a digger, but what it used to be was only a digger. You took blades, went under the peanuts, lifted them up, shook the dirt out a little bit, and dropped them back on the dirt. Well, there's a farmer that modified his equipment. He said, if I moved these bars and arranged them in such a way on the back of this digger, then I can actually turn the peanuts up and allow the sun to dry them. And it was a modification. It wasn't long before. I mean, you can't find a digger inverter that doesn't have this on it because it was modified to make it better. The same thing with a stalk chopper, the same thing. Modification often leads to innovation. There is not a single person in this room that does not have a cell phone, I would think. I've got one right here. It has been modified. This is not how I bought it from Apple. I have a tendency to drop things. And this one right here, when you drop it, it don't respond well. The screen will break, the thing will crack. So I put this little cover on it. Now, it makes it better to me. Now, my wife has got a cover on her cell phone that when I call her occasionally, she sounds like a robot. Sam has got the same cover on his, because I talked to him the other day. Chairman Watson has got the same cover. I called him the other day and I thought I was talking to a machine because it was very mechanical. It's just, and it's not his phone's fault. I'm not blaming Apple. I'm not blaming, I don't know who all makes these things, Google or Samsung or whoever it is. It's, Sam put it on there. Chairman Watson put it on there. Maybe it's his fault that he sounds like a robot. Modification is not the worst thing in the world, I got to tell you. But specifically, I exclude being able to modify where it violates federal standards. That's not cool. I heard it's not a property rights issue. It's about safety. The responsibility of safely operating equipment is the responsibility of the owner. We don't transfer that when we buy it. I got three more. One of the presenters said, made a claim of not owning his automobile under this logic. Well, auto right repair has been on the books for over a decade, and it has been highly successful in providing additional people to work on your automobile. I mean, each of us, we purchased a vehicle perhaps from a dealership, and I love my dealership. With my tractors, I love my dealership. I love those people, and they often work on my stuff. But if I'm in a tight and my dealer can't get to me, and if I'm farming and I'm in a tight and I got a window that I have to get planted or I have to get harvested, and I've got a freeze coming or I have a rain event coming, if I have something coming up and my equipment breaks down, I should be able to find someone to work on my stuff. So this year we'll have 2 blood moons. And let's assume that I have a business where I catch the blood moon rays and I modify this thing through this moon ray machine, and I sell you a coat that gives you off an aura because of the blood moon. And there's only 2 times a year that I can do that. And just before the blood moon comes up, guess what? My moon ray machine breaks down. And if everybody has got to go to one person, one dealer to fix my moon ray machine, I might miss an opportunity, the few opportunities that I have a year in order to make money. I think we should expand the number of people that have access. There were concerns expressed from the gaming industry about making a video game piracy. This might make it easier. And I think we have addressed those concerns through this trade secrets that I mentioned. There is nothing in this bill that preempts federal piracy laws. 0. Federal law protects content creators. Piracy remains illegal and prosecutable offense. Repair is fully recognized as copyright compliant by the federal government. That is the issues that I saw from the last committee hearing that I did feel like I needed to address. I have talked to you about the changes that I made. I have had many many conversations, all who will may come, that I've talked to try to address their concerns. I'm sure there's some that don't like this still, in spite of my best efforts. And I don't blame them. I have friends on the other side of this. I don't blame them. If I had the opportunity to enforce a higher price for the monopoly profits that I could do, it's their role. It is their job. That is what you do when you have monopoly tendencies. That is what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to jump up and scream and yell if anyone tries to cause you to have less opportunities to make this money. I will remind you that if I go to the woods, we saw a bunch of scouts here at the Capitol today, and we have a scout camp. One of the things they know is you don't feed the bear. But let's say you got extra hot dogs and you see a bear come up, you think it's cool to throw them a hot dog, and the bear grabs a hot dog, and that night the bear comes back and he's looking for a hot dog. If you don't have one, you might be the hot dog. Don't blame the bear. The bear is doing what bears do. Don't feed the bear. That's what this bill does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. And I want to say thank you for your work on this bill. You've really put a lot of time and effort in it, and it's been hard. This is a complicated issue that affects lots of manufacturers out there. And I just really appreciate you effort to try to narrow this down with this substitute and take all those unintended consequences or other things into account. And I really appreciate your effort on this. It's an important issue to consumers as well as the manufacturers, both, and trying to find common ground, if there's any, or trying to find a line that would go through this is difficult. So thank you. Would you be open to a few questions from the committee?
Absolutely.
I see a few here.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Watson's light's been lit up for a while down there. So Sharon Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish I was, I got here about 1 o'clock this morning, so I'm still trying to drink my coffee and get woke up, but
we are very sorry about your grandmother.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Acknowledge that earlier, and our thoughts and prayers have been with you and your family on that. So
thank you.
Thank you for the effort to be back up here.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Couple of quick questions here, I guess, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. And some of them are kind of technical and specific, but I guess my first one is we've got some exemptions in here, and we've heard that auto has it figured out. And they do a good job and they're okay. But if that's what we're saying, why are we exempting auto and why are we exempting medical? If I'm gonna make the investment, and on my farm, I have a welder and I have a construction guy and do a lot of stuff on my own. If I decide I want to do repair and maintenance on my equipment and I want to pull my Duramax in there, which has some problems right now that needs to go to the dealer, and only the dealer can fix it. Why are we exempting auto and why are we exempting medical if they've got it figured out?
So auto was already carved out. So we've had right to repair on automobiles for over a decade. So they're carved out because we already have it. I think it's a test case that has worked quite well over the time. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not going to specify a certain engine, but some of these diesel engines on my farm trucks also have some issues, and it's not specific to a manufacturer, but yeah, there are some issues that need to be addressed. But that's the reason for the carve out. For medical devices, it's actually covered in the second part. So for some of the medical devices, the FDA actually requires a different authorization. And so it is required by FDA for you to work on certain medical devices to have FDA approval before you can work on them. And so that's why medical devices are carved out. But I agree that we do need, wow. I entered a time loop.
But if they're already exempt, why are we specifically listing them in here again? I guess, is that,
Well,
why do we have to, if they're already exempt, why do we have to put that in here?
well, that's a good question, but I pulled them out because we already have right to repair for automobiles. I mean, it's already there. So.
Okay, second quick question. This has shall apply on July 1st, 2022. And I know our dealers and the equipment manufacturers have contracts with each other and certain agreements that they already have in place that they're authorized to sell stuff. And now all of a sudden, governor signs this, and who knows how many people are going to start calling equipment manufacturers and asking for different parts, and they probably don't have anybody to answer the phone today. I'm just curious how this is going to play out. And then what about the contracts that the dealers have with the manufacturers going forward? Can they get this done in that amount of time?
Yeah. So most of the manufacturers and the dealers I talked to said they already provide this. They're already providing the tools. They're already providing these things. So I would think they're already set up. I would be amenable if it would change to the first of the year, but I'd love to get it in place before my next harvest season, to be honest with you. But, I would be amenable to that. But several of those testified last week said we already provide, we're providing these tools and equipment necessary already. So I wouldn't think it'd be a big leap.
But they're providing it to a certain number of people in a certain network. They have a system that they use. Now we're telling them that they got to have a different, it's open to the world. It's open to anybody that's licensed. So they got a whole nother group of people that they've got to start answering the phone to and shipping to 2234 Shea Murphy Road. I mean, they're not accustomed to, they're not Amazon or you know what I'm saying? I mean, they're a little different organization than that as far as distribution goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can get my tractor fixed, but yet they call it better to get the parts and they don't know who this guy is. They don't know, is he registered with them? Is he on file? Does he have credit? They got to have a credit card number. What are the logistics of, okay, we can repair it now, but how are they going to actually get the physical part and get it to their shop and get the piece of equipment going and operating? Whereas, the dealers have that in place today.
Well, I mean, okay.
Well,
Go ahead,
let's
Mr.
kind of
Chairman.
move on.
Okay.
I think maybe some other people want to talk. Representative Scoggins. Okay. All right. Thank you. This is Representative Larica. Have you got a question?
Number 11. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gosh, I think it's disingenuous to use the word monopoly, in particular as it relates to 200-year ago economist Adam Smith from whoever and Milton Friedman, because what they would tell you is it not true that you can buy any tractor you want to from any other dealer you want to? Now, public education is a monopoly. You got one choice, and they're taking your taxpayer money at the point of a gun to get that money to only give you one choice. So I'll name them out by name. John Deere. I think it's unfair to claim that they operate a monopoly when you're free to go to any tractor dealer you want to buy a tractor. Most of the ones that bought those pieces of equipment bought them for one reason, is because they are probably the very best in the world. The other part of the comment would be, what is fair and reasonable terms in this whole negotiation of what this bill says? I think it even says in there maybe reasonable profit. Would you agree that $6 gas, somebody's probably making a lot more profit than they would have, because the number one rule of economics is scarcity. When something's more scarce, you can make more of a profit. Well, who gets to determine what reasonable profit is in fair and reasonable terms? And I'll close it with this. I was not aware that this was going to be as complicated a bill as what it appears to be. There's a lot of ambiguous terms in this, and particularly I don't like to hear monopoly because I'm in termite and pest control business. There's 100 guys competing with me every day. It's not the farmers or John Deere's fault that there's not a lot of other people out there building tractors. And the reason they're not is because some of these companies have done an exceptional job of providing the best equipment in the world for a fair and reasonable price. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to be very cognizant of the time. It's getting close to 9:30. I know our committee members, we have session. But is anybody in the audience just about to have could be short, would want to speak to this thing? Scott Turner. We're going to need to keep it short and make your point, and we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I will keep it short. I just first and foremost want to thank Representative Perkle. He is a David in a David versus Goliath story here, and he's not trying to slay the dragon. He's trying to work with Goliath. He has been doing yeoman's work, a ton of work on trying to fix the nuances in this bill. And it's a complex issue, but it's not one that's outside the comprehension of the members of this committee. Every single one of you guys have dealt with complex issues at some point during your legislative careers, and you're capable. I just want to take a moment to have you imagine a machine for a moment that weighs about 4.5 tons. You travel at 130 miles per hour. It's covered in metal, rubber. It's 4-wheel drive and go off the road. It can be on the highway. It can carry up to 6 people comfortably, 330 horsepower, 415 foot-pounds of torque. What I've just described to you is the brand new Ford Bronco, and it's capable of killing you, but it doesn't because people are responsible when they drive that vehicle. But it sounds scary. All of this stuff can sound scary, but you have a right to repair that thing yourself if you want to. And that's all we're asking for with the rest of this, with all this other equipment. Farmers in Georgia, I sent you all a video from RFD TV article that was posted recently. A farmer in Georgia, any farmer in Georgia, many farmers in Georgia are hurting because they do not have access to be able to fix something that they own. And if you cannot fix it, you do not own it. And you have not transferred ownership of that piece of equipment just because of the brand name that's on the outside. We don't hold you accountable. We don't hold the manufacturer accountable when somebody hacks off a catalytic converter on their car. It might be illegal to do that, but Ford's not responsible for that. And they're okay with you fixing your own car. That's all we're asking for, is the same level of ownership that you have of every other piece of equipment. If you cannot fix it, you do not own it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else really, Ms. Bowen? Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I will be brief as well. Chairman Corker, we do appreciate the effort that you put into trying to resolve the points that were made by many folks that had issues with this bill. Unfortunately, we don't think they're quite responsive to the issues that were raised. We believe this is a very complex piece of legislation. And if we were to agree with the changes that you made, and we were to agree that they were responsive wholly to our concerns, then we wouldn't even need the bill. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that this committee hold the bill. It is very complex. I think Representative Watson, Representative Laricchia raised some very legitimate concerns. We share those same concerns about who determines profitability. We see in this bill umpteen chances for continued litigation, which is not helpful to the business climate in Georgia. And again, with all due respect to Chairman Perkle, we ask that the committee retain the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, that is our status today. We've had a good hearing. Thank you, Chairman Perkle, again. Great comments this morning. Great A lot of changes, narrowing down this bill, as I said before. So thank you for the patience. Let me tell the committee where we are. We will have to have another committee meeting before crossover, either possibly tomorrow. I hope not Friday. But we had a piece of legislation put in our committee yesterday, and then Mr. Gullett has got might be back with his. So we've got a couple hanging pieces of legislation, including this one. And so I'll be on the lookout for another committee, hopefully be a short committee meeting when we have it. With that, if there's nothing else for the good, meeting adjourned.